It's time.
Yes, it is true, ladies and gentlemen. We are back live. I am your host, Pistols. Welcome to another episode of the Front Office Podcast. And today, we talk about why the rankings will hurt your fantasy draft. Because fantasy managers love rankings. They really do. Every summer, the fantasy community becomes obsessed with them. And I say obsessed because you wait for the experts and you wait for your favorite websites to come out with the top 300 lists or whatever the case may be, and you go through and you look at every single one of them and you go, okay, these are the guys that I need to get. Well, rankings do have value. They do have some value. They have some sort of value. But fantasy managers have started treating rankings like a strategy as opposed to just a guideline. And that's the problem. Today, we are going to talk about the biggest mistakes that fantasy managers make every single season because rankings are not a strategy. So welcome in to the front office. Let's get it going. It's good to be back. Took a little bit of a break there. Had some personal stuff going on. Appreciate y'all for being here. Thank you so much for joining me today. Yeah, let's close out June strong. Yeah, we're getting to the thick of it. Training camps are starting. We're gonna see a lot of movement on the depth charts. We're gonna see some ADP movements. Let's get into it. Here's why rankings exist. Okay. They're not bad. I don't want anybody to get out there and go, oh my God, this guy's shitting on rankings. No. Rankings are not bad. They are very, very useful. But the problem arises when managers rely on them and they stop thinking for themselves. They start relying on this list of players that have been presented to them. They're more... I want you guys to think about them as more of a blueprint than anything. Rankings are a guideline. They're not a full-blown strategy because, let's face it, rankings are static. Rankings will always be there, regardless of who gets taken and when and who gets taken where. The rankings are going to stay the same. They don't change. And what I mean by that is your draft is going to change pick by pick, round by round. You are going to see a shift in value. You're going to see a shift in the metric of what is the draft. Okay. They are designed, and here's the thing: they're designed for every type of league. There are different leagues, there are different settings, there are different strategies that you have to go about in each type of league, whether it be a half a PPR league, a full point PPR league, a guillotine league, a dynasty league. There's all an 8-man league, a 10-man league, a 12-man league, a 14-man. It sounds crazy, but I've seen 14-man. I've been a part of a 16-man league. I came in second place in that league. The way that you have to think about all these changes, and just looking at a list doesn't change. The list stays the same regardless of who gets picked and who gets drafted where, at what position, and what round, and whatnot. You know, the reality check of it is every single draft room is unique. Every draft room that you're going to come across is going to be different than the last. Whether you're in 5 of the same different types of same formatted leagues, if you're in 5 of them across 5 of those leagues, every draft room is going to be different. 2 managers can use the exact same rankings and draft completely different names. And that's kind of the point that I'm trying to make here in segment 1 here. The difference between each league is unwavering. You know, every league is different. They're all going to have different outcomes. Whether you draft in the same position, different positions, who you draft with, who you don't draft with, and blah, blah, blah. Every single draft room that you enter is going to have a different outcome. So if you look at the rankings and you view the rankings and you're just looking off a static list, it is going to vary from one league to the next league to the next league to the next league. Okay. Which brings me to my next point, the ADP trap, I like to call it. Player A is ranked 15. Player B is ranked 22. Fantasy managers immediately assume the gap must be pretty massive if that is a 7 position swing in the ADP rankings. But the reality of it is that the difference is a lot smaller than you think. Those gaps in the ADP, it may look like a lot, but in the reality of it, like, you know, we're talking, and for example, here's the thing. Prime example, if your first round pick is, you know, Christian McCaffrey, he's the first running back off the board. Then you have Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson. Well, ADP might have them at 1, 7, 12. But in reality, based on the situation and everything that's going on between the situations in each respective offense, their ADP is not really all that different. Very similar players, very similar styles, very different offensives. But those are the guys that, you know, your league is not going to be decided by that ADP gap. Okay. Fantasy championships are going to be won by the guy who is able to not only adapt during the draft, but also find the value in the later rounds. Because the later rounds are the ones that are more important, to where, yes, all your superstars are gone. You're going to see your top guys like CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, even. All those guys are gone. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, top tier quarterbacks. Your top tight ends are probably going to go in round 3, round 4. Your Brock Bowers, your Trey McBrides. Hopefully your Tucker Crafts. If you're smart, you'll get a stake in him. But that difference between ADP is not going to make or break your season. What's going to make or break your season is if you can't adapt to how everyone else in the league is drafting. Because like I said, every single draft room that you come encounter with, every single draft room that you are a part of, will be 100% different than the one you did before. And speaking as somebody who is in multiple leagues every single year, as somewhere in between 6 and 8 leagues every single year, I win the majority of them. I'm usually 50% on the year. No draft is ever the same, regardless of where I pick, regardless of what position that I select in each room. Don't fall victim to the trap that is the ADP. Yes, ADP is important. The only thing that ADP does, though, is really just make it seem like you're not reaching for somebody, or it makes you seem like you're taking a guy where you should, rather than stepping back and evaluating the situation around them and what offenses they're coming from, what offense they're running, are they the focal point of the offense, etc., etc. Because, as I said, every draft room is different, because your league is not going to follow the rankings. Everybody is going to pick differently. Every draft pick is going to be unique. Most leagues that I've been a part of, as I said many times on the channel, I am not a guy that drafts a quarterback super early. There are leagues out there that you will be a part of that you will see quarterbacks starting to go in the 2nd round, 3rd round, 4th round. And for me, that is just way too early to start drafting quarterbacks. a lot of the times you're going to find that rookies are really, really reached upon. Like this year, you're probably going to see Jeremiah Love in the top 5 rounds. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody takes him super early. You're going to see somebody, some of these guys get drafted earlier than expected. Now, I am a vocal advocate about not going all in on rookies their rookie year. Rookies are a position for me and a spot on the roster that I need to see what this rookie can do at a different level, because between college football and the NFL, the difference in gameplay and the speed of the game is worlds different. You're going to see these guys come in and, don't get me wrong, not everybody has that struggle, but I still like to see what a rookie can do in their first year, if they're going to be a focal point of the offense or if they're just going to ride the bench. Now, if we all did that with Jordan Love years ago when they drafted him in the first round behind Aaron Rodgers, you would have been very disappointed, because Aaron Rodgers was still there. He's still good. It took him a little while to develop. He sat behind Aaron Rodgers for like 4 or 5 years before he got the starting position. Bijan Robinson's a little different. Yes, he was a all-world talent, probably the most highly doubted guy coming out of college. He's a workhorse. We know that. Nobody knew that Jahmyr Gibbs was going to be as good as he is. Nobody thought that Saquon Barkley is going to be as good as he was, or as good as he is. But a lot of you're just going to see different looks out of every single league that you're a part of. Whether, like I said, they draft QBs early, they chase the rookies, they, a lot of, I'm from Buffalo, New York, so I see a lot of people reach for Josh Allen super early. I'd imagine it's the same in a lot of other cities. You're going to see guys chase their hometown guys, especially if you're in Cincinnati and you have a lot of guys to choose from on that offense between Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Chase Brown, T. Higgins, all those guys. Atlanta's the same way. The Rams are going to be the same way. A lot of these guys, man. Dreams, what's going on, man? I appreciate you for being here, my man. A lot of the time too is you're going to see a lot of people panic during runs. What I mean by a run is, as soon as you see that first quarterback go, a lot of the times the other managers follow suit. They're going to start picking the best quarterbacks in the league, which is fine. Again, it's not how you manage that, it's how you react to it. I personally, when I see a quarterback run like that super early, I choose to wait on it. I know who I'm getting in the 9th, 10th, 11th round. And I'm very happy with the guys that I can get at that point. The only thing that it does for me is when you draft a quarterback that early, it just you lose out on a position of skill and a position of need. Because when the draft starts, the reality check of it is that rankings stop making sense, because you're just going to see a bunch of guys look at a list and go, oh, this is the next guy available, I'm going to take him. And they don't pay attention to the bye weeks, or if they're even going to be healthy enough for week 1, all that other fun stuff. Because my next point that I want to make is that you have to make sure that the value is there for these guys that you draft, because value, in my opinion, is more important than the rankings. If I have a guy that I value higher than some of these other guys, and listen, I want to preface this by saying too, when it comes to drafting, and you're especially in the first 3 rounds, 4 rounds even. Yes, we all are going to take our CeeDee Lambs, our Jamar Chases, our Christian McCaffreys, our Jahmyr Gibbs, our Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley's, Derrick Henry's, all those guys are going to go. But it's the value that you look at within an offense as a whole. So a guy like Chris Olave has a lot of value to me, because he is the guy that Tyler Shuck trusts. He is a guy that the offense can rely on. Now, they have a new running back, Travis ETN. It's ETN on this channel. Guys like that, Chris Olave, you're going to see. For me, he's going to get drafted a little bit higher in my rankings because I think he has the potential to be one of the best receivers in the league. And we have seen his talent. We've seen his ability to run routes and his big play ability that he has. They did find something in Tyler Shuck late in the season. Another couple other guys that we're going to look at early is Brian Thomas Jr. from Jacksonville. Coming off the injury, Trevor Lawrence kind of found himself. He found a little bit of a groove with Liam Cohen as his head coach now. There was another team that I was just about to mention, and I can't remember who it was. Anyway, but fantasy managers will always ask, the biggest question that they ask is, all right, well, who's ranked higher? The better question that you need to ask is, who's more valuable? Because when you're talking about value and you're talking about rankings are just there as a guideline. It's the value that you want to look at as a whole that is going to help you roster a championship team. Between the rankings and the value, those are two very, very different things. Because of course, the rankings are based on the stats from last year. The value comes into play if you did a little bit more research and you did a little bit more homework to see where the most important players are on their respective teams. Even teams like the San Francisco 49ers, who are their valuable guys? Well, in my opinion, and I've said this before, the 49ers have the best system in the NFL. It doesn't matter who gets thrown in there, they will perform. Whether it's Brock Purdy, and we know he's going to miss games. They brought in 2 seasons ago, they brought in Sam Darnold, won them games. Last season, they brought in Mac Jones, won them games. George Kittle missed like 11 games or so. Jake Tonjes came in, played absolutely phenomenal. Christian McCaffrey was their only healthy piece all season, and he played very, very well. It's just one of those things. So those guys have a lot of value to me, is those, Jake Tonjes, and I'm not saying go ahead and draft them in the first 5 rounds. You're gonna look at a Jake Tonjes type of guy and in the 12th, 13th, 14th round, and that's fine. But the point of everything is don't rely on that list of players that you have in front of you to make your decision for you. Step back, think about what's going on. Think about the league. Think of the offense that you're looking to draft from, and ask yourselves, all right, where are the value guys on this team? Now, I get that in the draft day scenario, it's a lot easier said than done, because you might only have 60 seconds, 90 seconds, whatever the case may be, to think about your next draft pick. Word of advice, especially something that I do in my drafts, I am at least 3 or 4 picks ahead. I look at the guys that are on the board, I evaluate the offense around them, and I make my decision. Then I have a bunch of guys in the back of my head, or in the back of my mind, or whatever you want to call it, to where, okay, now if this guy gets drafted, who am I going to take next? If this guy gets drafted, who am I going to take next? Your draft will go so much smoother. You will panic less if you have a few guys in mind that you are willing to draft next. Keep in mind, like I said, to start a draft, I'm always 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers. That is the first 4 picks in my draft. In whatever order, it doesn't matter. That is part of my strategy. I have to keep in mind the positional runs that I know are coming, which is usually the quarterback and the tight end run super early. I usually let them go. I react to them differently than a lot of people. I've seen so many drafts where as soon as a quarterback gets taken, quarterbacks are off the board. As soon as a tight end gets taken, tight ends are off the board. Now, I understand more the tight end aspect of it, because there's not many tight ends that are really, really involved in each offense. The quarterback thing, though, gets me every single time, because the fact of the matter is I see these guys go super early, but that is not the reason why. I've never seen anybody taking a quarterback that early win a league. Last year I won 2 championships with Dak Prescott as my quarterback, and I didn't get him until like the 10th round. And one league I actually traded for him. So it wasn't even a draft pick in one league. But either way, you have to pay attention to everything that goes into it. Pay attention to your settings, pay attention to the opportunity versus the ranking, because your championship managers will draft the board. They are the ones that are able to adapt accordingly. They're the ones that are able to stay calm under pressure. And believe me, draft day is very, very stressful. It can be, especially if it doesn't go according to plan, which is kind of the point that I try to make to you guys, and want you guys to make sure that you stay calm and have a plan to execute your draft day successfully, because believe me, plan A, you will never finish plan A. Plan B, you might have a little bit more picks in plan B. I recommend having plan C, D, E, and F. Okay. Having multiple plans and multiple strategies just makes draft day so much more simpler. Make sure that you are just drafting the board, being able to adapt accordingly. I never go by the rankings in fantasy football. Like I said, and also depending on the website that you use, Yahoo is going to have a different ranking system than ESPN. ESPN is going to have a different ranking system than Sleeper. Sleeper is going to have a different ranking system than CBS Sports or NFL.com. Any of these websites that you guys use to draft, even, and if you want to do a little bit of research beforehand, pull up each website that you can join a fantasy football league, and pull up the rankings that they have for each position. I can guarantee you that every single one of them is going to have different players all across the top 100. So you're going to see some names on there that you've never even recognized. You're also going to see the same names over and over again, but you're going to see them in different positions. So, understand the value, understand the scarcity. And what I mean by scarcity is understand where like the tight ends are very scarce in fantasy football. As I always say, they're becoming irrelevant in fantasy football. Maybe not so much on the field, but as far as elite tight ends go, there are not many in the league. We just saw Kyle Pitts get a pretty massive extension with Atlanta, probably reset the tight end market. Now he's now the highest paid tight end in the league. So that'll be something to look out for. Maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit about where tight ends are going to get drafted and the value of a tight end. Nobody cares about kickers. Your very last pick of your draft should be your kicker. I'm a guy that I will always pick a kicker in the last round of my draft. I also cycle them every single week. I look at the matchups. If I see a team that's playing a pretty decent defense that they're not going to score a lot of points in, I'll take the kicker from that team. That usually works out pretty well for me. You could also do the opposite, and if you draft a kicker of a team that scores a ton of points, Jake Bates comes to mind. I know the Lions score a lot of points. I think they've averaged 40 points a game for the last 2 or 3 seasons. So it's a high scoring offense, a kicker is going to kick, right? If they're going to score 7 touchdowns in a game, that's 7 points automatically, right? So, I love Jake Bates. I love Cam Little, actually. Guy's got an absolute rocket for a leg. You just have to pay attention. And I'm literally cycling out my kickers every single week. I don't think I ever start with. I think I have a new kicker every single week or every couple weeks or so. It's just a position that really, I mean, if we eliminated it from fantasy football, nobody would even care. The problem with the kickers, though, and I know a lot of people complain about having a kicker on their roster and it just wastes a roster spot and this and that. There have been some kickers out there that have outscored some of the big name guys. Brandon Aubrey from Dallas, I'm pretty sure he averaged like 15 or 20 points a game. So it's just one of those things where, you just have to evaluate everything. Don't rely on the rankings don't rely on the rankings as a strategy to go about your draft. Think for yourself. Don't let the list dictate how you play fantasy football, because the lists are going to change. And in my opinion, they really kind of shift every single week. Every single week, you're going to see a different guy at the top of the list. And of course, throughout the season, all these websites, they all do, as of right now, season rankings and this and that, blah, blah, blah. They're going to be completely different from the beginning of the season rankings, because you just don't know what's going to happen. But if you have an understanding and you're able to evaluate the offenses and where the value lies within that offense, you're not going to be as surprised during the season when, those new rankings come out and you go, oh shit, I drafted CeeDee Lamb in the first round. Well, he's currently putting up 4th round numbers, so I'm getting screwed. So it's just like, it is what it is. Yeah. Kickers and defenses are the worst thing to deal with every single week. And that's just one of those things that, I literally every single week I'm looking at the waivers to see what kicker, what defense is available. And I'm going solely based on matchups. And I'll tell you what, there's a defense out there that might give up 30 points a game, but if they're playing a team like the Jets or the Browns, you better believe I'm picking them up, because those teams are just first of all, they're the Browns or the Jets or whatever, they have bad offenses, but from a kicker and a defensive standpoint, like, you only really need 10 to 15 points from either one of them. And that's a pretty solid week for a kicker, a pretty solid week for a defense. So now I know there's anomalies out there. Like, you had Houston's defense last year who was really, really good. You had who's the other defense that was really good? It'll come to me eventually. But either way, the point of this episode is to get you guys to kind of not rely on rankings so much. And I know a lot of people are going to go to whatever website that they use, and they're going to print out a sheet and they're going to bring it to their draft and they're going to look. And I know that when you're in the draft room, you're able to sort those players out based on their ADP and based on their rankings and where they rank, professionally and whatnot and blah, blah, blah. But all I'm saying is, if you take anything from this episode, think for yourself. Trust your gut. When it comes to fantasy football, when you can trust your gut, your fantasy drafts will go a lot smoother, because I can tell you from experience, in the 20 years that I've been playing fantasy football, for not trusting my gut, I have left a lot of points to my opponents, because I decided to not draft somebody. I was worried about an injury. I was worried about this and that, and it ended up screwing me in the end. So the biggest thing that I can tell you guys is, don't completely ignore rankings. Use them as a guideline, but think for yourself. Think of the value of the next player that you're about to draft, and make sure that value fits the scheme and fits the roster construction that you want to build for yourself. Because every single round, every single pick is going to change the value of the draft. Rankings can help, but they're not a strategy. So I want you guys to prepare now and win later. And this has been another episode of the Front Office Pod. Oh my God, the Front Office Pod. I forgot the name of my own podcast for a minute. The Front Office Podcast. I'm your host, Pistols. Catch you guys later, and we'll see you on the next episode. All right.